Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiriyet.
Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Nar Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author.
And as our Guru Maharaj used to say, onto Srila Prabhupada, the 13th Mahajan. Nasta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nitya Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki.
By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. Loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact.
Right. So, Hare Krishna, dear devotees, thank you very much for joining us. We'd like to seek the blessings of the spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada so that we can try to dive into the nectar of the Srimad Bhagavatam to please our Guru Parampara, to please Srila Vyasadeva, and to please Radha Krishna, Gaunitai. We like to pray for the blessings from Bhagavatam itself so that the nectar within it becomes accessible. It's a wonderful journey that we start today by looking at the first canto, first chapter. And I'd like to seek your good wishes and your blessings as well, that we are able to have a smooth ride during this journey. This is a journey of nectar, and it's something that we should be relishing at every moment. And I mean, I've been living the Bhagavatam for the last few days, and in the sense that living it, eating it, sleeping it, and it is such an amazing scripture. So let's start with, we've looked at these verses and this one. Okay, let me go to chapter 1 itself. Oops, sorry. Share screen. Can you see what's on the screen? Okay, so here we go. Canto 1, chapter 1. So this is a very nice verse to start with. 13th verse of this chapter. Tanna shushu salmananam ahasi anganun varnitam yasyavataro bhutanam shemaya cha bhavaya cha.
Sutta Goswami, we are eager to learn about the personality of Godhead and his incarnations. Please explain to us those teachings imparted by previous masters, acharyas, for one is uplifted both by speaking them and by hearing them.
So this is the sages in Naimisharanya, and they want to know a lot more. So they start off with asking a number of questions to Sutta Goswami, and this is one of them. So the first chapter is named Questions by the Sages, and the way we've tried to do it is we've put it into segments of verses. So from verses 1 to 3, it's the Mangalacharan, the beginning, the auspiciousness, and then we carry on from text 4 to 8, which is where the sages worship Sutta Goswami. And we're not proposing to go through every verse, but we've done a summary of these verses here. So we'll read through this and expand upon anything that needs to be expanded upon. And I'm hoping that beforehand, the devotees are able to actually read some of the chapters that we're going to cover on the seminar day. This will actually enhance your learning, enhance our learning, and it will really help to try to understand the Bhagavatam. Of course, it's very difficult to understand the Bhagavatam because Bhagavatam is non-different from Krishna, and Krishna is not easy to understand. But if we make our effort, then the Lord will shower his mercy. So if there's no effort, then there's no question of mercy. It's just like the farmer who doesn't sow the seed. Even if it rains, there's not going to be any crop. So we have to sow the seed. We have to put the effort in. And then whether the rain comes, whether the mercy comes or not, that's up to Ishwar. That's up to Krishna. But at least we've done our effort. So has anybody actually read any of these chapters recently? Chapters 1, 2, or 3? We're going to try to cover all those 3 today, if we can.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes, I've read.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mataji. Anybody else?
Yes, Prabhu, I have read too.
Okay, great. Kamakshi as well?
I have a little bit, but can't remember much.
No, that's okay. That's a common problem with me as well.
Yeah, I can't remember that.
Sitaram.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay.
I have read also. I have also.
Thank you very much. And Suresh, you have as well.
I think I enjoy more when you are explaining it to us. Then you digest more.
Yeah, I completely agree. You just bought me by your bribe.
Not really, honestly. I'm really being honest. Reading yourself is different. And the way you put it is so is excellent. And then, you can digest it and you can remember certain things. Obviously, it's a big chapter. Bhagavatam is a very, very big chapter. But at least we can get a little bit of gist of every verses, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So I would rather be listening to you.
Yeah, that's just one way to get out of it. Well, nice one, Suresh.
No, not really, but that is really, really true because I'm not a reader. Okay. I don't like reading too much. I like listening. So that's my problem.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Absolutely. There's no obligation to read. It just will help the...
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And Lee he was busy today. Okay. So he's a good reader, this fellow who's been joining us recently. But anyway, let's make a start. And what I wanted to also mention to devotees is this is one format. We can do it differently if this format doesn't work. So I think we're going to just learn as we're going along. We've sort of done this with the Bhagavad Gita and it worked well. But with the Bhagavatam, it's a different type of scripture. So let's see how we go on. And if devotees have suggestions and feedback, it's very welcome. We can always improve. We can always do things better, differently. Okay, so the first verse, first 3 verses. Firstly, respectful obeisances are offered to Lord Krishna because he is the absolute truth, the primeval cause of all causes of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He first imparted the Vedic knowledge onto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. This is actually Sambandha. This verse describes the beginning of our relationship with the Lord, the introduction. So we're being introduced to Sri Krishna. The second verse, actually this is the second or third verse. Second verse, yeah. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavad Puran propounds the highest truth As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within the heart. So this is very powerful. If we hear Bhagavatam submissively, if we have a empty vessel, if you like. There was a student who came with a full glass of water, and the teacher said to him, put more water in that glass. And he put more water and it all flowed out. So the student asked, why did you make me do that? So the teacher explained, because you had a full glass of water already. Nothing I taught you could fit in. If you have an empty glass of water, what I can give you, you will be able to fill the, you will be able to keep it in the glass. So this is the point about Bhagavatam, to hear it in a very nice way. Because this culture of knowledge will be established within our heart. That's Abhidaya. Abhidaya means introducing service. So we've been introduced to Krishna, and now we're going to serve Krishna by hearing his message. And the third is thoughtful men relish Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures, which emanated from the lips of Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. So this is Prayojana, which is the final goal that we want to achieve. Prema Bhakti, Krishna Prem. And our goal here is to relish the Bhagavatam. If we relish the Bhagavatam, we'll be relishing Krishna himself. The next set of verses, 4 to 8, the sages, they welcome Sutta Goswami, they worship Sutta Goswami. The narration of the Bhagavatam begins in the holy place of Nemi Sharanya, where great sages gather to perform a 1,000-year sacrifice. First glorify Srila Sutta Goswami, the speaker of the Bhagavatam, and then begin inquiring from him. One must hear the Bhagavatam from a bona fide representative of Vyasadeva. This is very important. There are professional reciters of the Bhagavatam who are paid. It's a job for them. But Bhagavatam is not an occupation. Bhagavatam is devotion. And one must hear it from a devotee, a bona fide representative, one who understands Bhagavatam, understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead, according to his realization. So this is the Nemi Sharanya, the wonderful sages who gathered to stop Kali's influence.
Yeah, I was listening to a lecture today, and it said that the sages tried so hard to do this yagya, and they did the yagya for 1,000 years, but they still were not satisfied, and they couldn't stop Kali. So that is why they requested Sutta Goswami to advise them what to do.
Okay. Next set of verses, 9 to 13. For the sake of people in Kali Yuga who have short lives, are quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed, right? This probably rings a bell with everybody because this is our situation pretty much in Kali Yuga. The sages begin posing their questions. They especially desire to know what is the ultimate good for people in general and the essence of scriptures. So it explains in these verses that if both the speaker and the hearer are qualified, the hearer will easily understand the absolute truth, Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And notice these questions are for the good of people. Sages, devotees, they always ask questions. And they are always relevant questions to benefit everyone. The Lord's holy names and devotees, this is the next theme, 14, verses 14 to 20. They then glorify hearing about the Lord and request Sutta Goswami to speak to them about the Lord and his incarnations. Hearing of the ever fresh pastimes, names, and glories of Krishna will attract one from the horrible Kali Yuga trap of material world to the eternal, blissful, spiritual realm. So Suresh, you're absolutely right. Hearing about the Lord is the way actually how we can
I digest it like that.
become attracted to Krishna. Absolutely right. Hearing is actually the first. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. So thank you for that. Spiritual master is described in verses 21 to 23. Knowing well that the age of Kali has just begun, the sages have gathered in the holy place of Naimisharanya to hear in detail the message of the Lord. The sages accepted Sutta Goswami as captain of the ship, the spiritual master, for those who desire to cross the difficult ocean of Kali. They then asked a question. Now that, the final question, now that Sri Krishna, the absolute truth, the master of all mystical power, has departed for his abode, please tell us by whom the religious principles are presently protected. These are really relevant questions. So we're going to go through these questions in a minute. So this is the boat. We want to get onto this boat. And the captain of our ship is Srila Prabhupada. The first officer is the spiritual master. So Prabhupada is driving this ship, this boat, and we want to get onto it. This boat of Bhagavatam, boat of knowledge, which will help us cross over the ocean of material existence. Very important we get onto this boat. So let's go through these questions. There's 6 questions that are asked by the sages, and I was wanting to give you the answers at the same time. This is compiled by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, one of the previous acharyas. So the first question was, what is the ultimate benefit and good, Shreya, for mankind? And that's in text 9. And the answer that Sutta Goswami gives, after describing that devotional service to Sri Krishna was the essence of the scriptures, Sutta explains that the ultimate benefit for people in general is to become free from material bondage and develop love of God through devotional service, offered only to Krishna or his plenary parts, his incarnations. So, first question, what's the ultimate benefit for everyone? Become free from material bondage and develop love for God through bhakti. Second question, what is the essence of all scriptures? Text number 11 is where the question is asked. The answer, well, throughout the second chapter of the Bhagavatam, and especially in verses 6 and 7, and continued later on as well, Sri Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, is confirmed as the only object of worship, and establishing one's relationship with him in love and service through devotion is proclaimed as the sum and substance of the Vedic literatures. That's the essence of all the scriptures. We've forgotten our relationship with God. We need to re-establish that relationship, and scriptures help us re-establish that relationship. For what reason did Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appear in this world? And the answer is to reclaim those in the mode of pure goodness. So he says in 4:7, what does he say? That verse where he says, I've come to destroy the miscreants. Yada idai dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam tadatmanam sajamiham. That's it. He says, I've come to destroy the miscreants and protect the devotees. But actually, his real mission is a little bit different. He's come to take us back, attract us back to him, re-establish that relationship. Fourth question, describe the wonderful deeds of the Lord when he assumed the forms of Brahma, Rudra for the purpose of creating, maintaining, and destroying the universe. So this question is answered in the second chapter, where it's described how Vasudeva created the material substance and enters into it as the Purush avatars. And then the third canto and the fourth canto describes this in some detail. Fifth question, fully describe the activities of Lord Hari's incarnations within this universe. And again, he answers this in the third chapter. And hopefully we'll get there. Where have religious principles gone after Krishna's disappearance from this planet? So that was that last question. We read it briefly. So he answers this by saying, this Bhagavad Puran is as brilliant as the sun. It has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in this age of Kali shall get light from this Puran. So after Krishna disappears, Bhagavatam is our abode, our sanctuary. We take sanctuary from the Bhagavatam, we are under Krishna's protection. That's where the religious principles are. Second chapter, first canto. So that was the first chapter. Second chapter has so many glorious verses. Each chapter I'm going to pick one verse, but it's by no means the only verse that we should look at. There are so many verses. But this verse has always attracted me. My Guru Maharaj used to repeat this verse over and over and over again. Savai pumsa paro dharma yato bhakti radoksaje ahaituki apratihata yayatma suprasidati.
The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which man can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendental Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self.
Keywords, unmotivated. We shouldn't have an ulterior motive when we're doing bhakti. Fame, name, material opulence. And uninterrupted. That's a tough one. We go to sleep now and then. So I was saying to somebody today who suffers from insomnia, you're very fortunate because if you're not sleeping, it means you're not in ignorance. But to use that time in bhakti. Anyway, chapter 2 is entitled Divinity and Divine Service. Sutta Goswami offers homage to Sukadeva Goswami, verses 1 to 4. Before replying, so all the questions have been asked, or some of the questions have been asked, and there's more questions coming.
First 6.
Yeah, first 6 questions, yeah, thank you. And Sutta Goswami first says, he offers his obeisances to his Guru Maharaj, stating how out of Sukadeva Goswami's great compassion for materialists, he spoke this confidential knowledge to Parikshit. He also offers his respectful obeisances to Narayan, Naranarayan Rishi, Mother Saraswati, and Shri. We chant that. Narayanam Namaskritya. So that's a wonderful verse to recite every time we open up the Bhagavatam, and soon we will know it by heart. Then he describes real dharma in the next 6 verses. And he answers some questions at the same time. Sutta answers the first 2 questions of the sages, explaining that the ultimate benefit for people in general is to become free from material bondage, develop love for God through bhakti. By rendering devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment. So you got Gyan and Vairagya. As soon as one does bhakti, Gyan comes, knowledge comes automatically, and Vairagya, detachment comes. This world doesn't seem as important as it did before we did bhakti. Why? Because the position of this world, it is a temporary place. It's like a hotel room. If devotees recall chapter 15 of the Bhagavad Gita, it's not a permanent place for us. So detachment is natural for the soul in knowledge. Occupational duties should be God-centered rather than self-centered. And in that way, if they're self-centered, they do not attract one to hear the message of the God. If one's occupational duty does not attract one to hear the message of the Lord, then it's a useless labor. This is the comment by it's in one of the verses in this chapter. I think it's verse number 9. So if our duties are not attracting us to God and his message, then we're just wasting our time. That's quite a heavy statement. Then he explains the three aspects of the absolute truth in verses 11 to 15. Sutta explains how the serious student, through knowledge and detachment, Gyan and Vairagya, realizes the absolute truth, which has three aspects. So the three aspects, one is formless, second is localized, the Paramatma, and third is the personal aspect, the Bhagavan, the original Supreme Personality, got its form. So we can realize that through bhakti. This pleases the Lord. Thus he advises that with one pointed attention, one should hear, glorify, remember, and worship the Lord, thus cutting the knots of karma. There's a lot that's been said. Give you an example of one pointed attention. Dronacharya was testing his students. So he called upon Yudhishthira and he said, there's an object that I want you to seek out on this tree. Can you find it? So Yudhishthira is a young boy, student. He is aiming the arrow and the Dronacharya asks him, what do you see? I see the tree. I see your lotus feet. I see a bird. I see a sky. Then he calls upon his son, Ashwatthama. What do you see? I see your lotus feet. I see the tree. I see a bird. Then he calls upon Arjun. What do you see, Arjun? I only see the head of the bird. And then he said, I only see now the eye of the bird. So this is the one pointed attention. We don't get diverted into different types of worship. One pointed attention to Krishna or his avatars. But it has to be that one pointed attention which will take us, which will put us on the boat back to Godhead. And that's how we cut the knots of karma. So the second part of the chapter is Shraddha to Prema, 16th verse to the 22nd verse. By serving the pure devotees, one gets a taste for hearing the message of Vasudev. The Lord in the heart cleanses desires for material enjoyment. So we allow him in our heart, he'll do the hard work. And loving service unto the Lord is established. Fixed in goodness and enlivened by contact with bhakti to the Lord, the devotee gains positive scientific knowledge of the Lord. We shouldn't think that this is just some sentimental, that God doesn't exist and science is the real thing. Actually, God is the most scientific personality and it's the science of Krishna consciousness. So once we begin on this path, Krishna will reveal this science to us. Therefore, all transcendentalists eternally render devotional service to Lord Krishna with great delight. The next set of verses, 23 to 29, talks about the Lord accepts three qualitative forms of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva in order to create, maintain, and destroy the material world. Of these three, we can only get the ultimate benefit from Vishnu, because Brahma and Shiva are not on the same level as Lord Vishnu. Shiva is much closer to Vishnu than Brahma, but yet still Vishnu is the one who can give us love of Godhead. He can take us back to the spiritual kingdom. Those who are serious about, are not envious, and they respect all. It doesn't mean that we don't respect. We do not worship the demigods, only the Supreme Lord and his incarnations. Krishna is the ultimate goal, and religion is rendering loving service unto him. So there are some glorious verses in this chapter, and I do encourage devotees to read each verse if you get the chance. Then the three Purushas are described. In the beginning of material creation, the Lord creates the energies of cause and effect by his own potency. He then enters into the cosmos by expanding himself as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. He further expands himself and enters into the bodies of all living entities, all living beings, as Paramatma. Thus the Lord maintains everything. He comes to reclaim the souls in the mode of goodness. This answers the third and fourth questions of the sages. So that's chapter 2. Let's quickly look at chapter 3, because this is the most important verse according in chapter 3, because it's got this second line, which is absolutely important to understand and remember. Ete chamsa kalapumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indradi Vyakalam Lokam Mridyanti Yuge Yuge.
All of the above mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. But Lord Shri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. All of them appear on planets whenever there is a disturbance created by the atheist. The Lord incarnates to protect the thesis.
So this line, Krishna tu Bhagwan Swayam, is this point here. Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagwan Swayam, only Bhagwan, original Bhagwan. Krishna tu. So try to remember this. Krishna tu Bhagwan Swayam. Beautiful, beautiful line to remember. The chapter's title is Krishna is the source of all incarnations. The first Purush is Karanadakshaya Vishnu. Might be easier just to look at this. Karanadakshaya Vishnu is there, and here he is. He's lying in this on the casual ocean. When he breathes out, millions and billions of universes come out of the pores of his skin. And then he expands further as Karanadakshaya Vishnu.
Shiva.
Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. He expands into every single universe. Every single universe has Garbhodakshaya. There's billions of universes. We're in the smallest one. And then here's Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. From him comes this lotus stem, on top of which is born Brahma. And then the third Vishnu comes, the third Purush, and that is Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. He expands into every living entity. So there's three Vishnus. So let me just go back and the first Purush, Karanadakshaya Vishnu, from his skin holes, innumerable universes have sprung up. In each and every universe, the Purush enters as the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. He is lying within half of the universe, which is full of, with the water of his body, his perspiration. From the navel of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu has sprung the stem of the lotus, the birthplace of Brahma, who is the father of all living beings and the master of all the demigod engineers engaged in the perfect design and workings of the universal order. Within the stem of the lotus, there are 14 divisions of planetary systems, and the earthly planets are situated in the middle. Upwards, there are other, better planetary systems, and the topmost system is called Brahmalok, Satyalok. Downwards from earthly planetary system, there are 7 lower planetary systems inhabited by the Asuras and similar other materialistic living beings. From Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, there's an expansion of Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, who is the collective Paramatma of all living beings. He is called Hari, and from him all incarnations within the universe are expanded. So there you go. The stem includes the 14 planetary systems. Earth is here. These are heavens and the higher planetary systems, and these are the lower planetary systems. Okay. As Paramatma, who goes into every living entity. Right. Of the unlimited incarnation, Sutta describes 22, beginning with the 4 Kumars, ending with Kalki avatar. Incarnations are innumerable, like rivulets flowing from an inexhaustible source of water. Just like if you can imagine an ocean and lots of rivers going into it. That's a little bit like how incarnations are. It's unlimited. Or waves in an ocean. Waves in the ocean. You can't even count the waves in the ocean. So similarly, we can't even count how many incarnations there are. So these Lila Avatars, we can just do a very quick run through. Right? We've done this before, so I'm not going to spend any time really doing this. So there's the 4 Kumaras, there's Narad Muni, Varaha. These are all briefly explained in the 3rd chapter. Matsya, the fish incarnation, Yagya, Narnarayan, Rishi, Kapildev, Dattatreya, Hayashesha, he's described, Hayagriva. Oh no, he's not actually. These 3 didn't actually appear in the Bhagavatam. So I've got a list of 25. So 3 of those didn't appear. Rishabdev, Prithu Maharaj, Nasingdev Bhagwan, Kuma, Dhanvantari, Mohini, the lady incarnation of the Lord, Vamandev, the dwarf, Pashuram, the warrior, Ramachandra, the prince, and then Vyasdev. Vyasdev is also an incarnation of God, the literal incarnation. Balaram, and then Krishna is listed, but he's listed as the original form of the Lord. And Buddha, and finally Kalki. Those are the 25 described in the 3rd chapter. However, it says, verse 28, the most important verse. We've read the Sanskrit and we also spoke the English. All of the above incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portion of the Lord, but Lord Sri Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. All of them appear on planets whenever there is disturbance created by the atheists. The Lord incarnates to protect the theists. Then 10 verses describe the universal form, and it says the recitation of the appearances of the Lord with devotion in the morning and evening gives relief from miseries of life. The conception of the universal form of the Lord is imaginary because the Lord has no material form. When the living entity is graced by the Lord, he becomes enlightened with self-realization. Only unreserved, uninterrupted bhakti to Krishna can allow to know us his full glory and transcendence. And then that verse, which we read in terms of the answer, Krishna is gone, so who is left to look after the religious principles? This Srimad Bhagavatam is the literal incarnation of God, compiled by Vyasadeva, who himself is an incarnation of God. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. This Purana is as brilliant as the sun. It has arisen just after the departure of Krishna to his own abode. Persons who have lost their vision due to darkness of ignorance in this age of Kali can get light from this Purana. Thus, Sukadeva Goswami answers the final question of the sages. Okay. Whew. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Okay. Just one thing. Bhagavatam actually is, the word Bhagavatam is 4 syllables. So Ba refers to bhakti, Ga refers to Gyan, which is knowledge, Va is Vairagya, renunciation, and Tam refers to Tattva Siddhanta, which is the knowledge of the Absolute. So even the word, if you just say that word, you can really imagine what the whole scripture is all about.
That's a nice point. Thank you. So that concludes the first session. I wanted to ask Madhusan Babu to share his realizations. And maybe devotees can also share whether the format is okay, or if you don't want to share it out loud, you're welcome to send me a message. But if devotees are comfortable with this, then I would propose that we continue in the same way going forward. So, Madhusan Babu?
Hare Krishna, Navi.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Haribol to everyone. Yeah, it's a nice quick overview of the first 3 chapters. There's quite a lot of content in this, and a lot of questions people can ask about, about the different aspects covered. But it is a, very important that actually if we study and read beforehand and then even try and read some of the purports, then it actually expands a bit more. But to cover it quickly like this, it's just, it's nice to get an overview. But then, Bhagavatam, when Sukadeva Goswami starts, by speaking, well, Sukadeva Goswami has spoken it to Maharaj Parikshit, but Sutta is answering the questions to all the sages. And the head of all the sages was Sonak Rishi. And Naimisharanya is a place where, devotees generally carry out a lot of sacrifices, and there's always benefit, but they chose that place as the onset of Kali Yuga. And they knew the challenges that are going to be in the Kali Yuga for all the living entities. So they performed yajnas for 1,000 years, They wanted to keep the Kali Yuga and prolong its onset as much as possible, and that's what devotees want. And Krishna is obviously left after the Mahabharata Yuddha and all the pastimes and winding up the Yadu dynasty, and that will all come later on. But once Krishna is gone, then the relevant questions the sage is asking is, where will the principles of religion, where have they taken shelter? And that's one of the questions. And the other questions obviously starts off with what is of most benefit for humanity. These questions are most important first, and then how Sutta Goswami answers them bit by bit. So obviously the questions are asking about the Krishna. Why did Krishna come to this planet? Why did he perform all these activities? And then also, what are his activities, Krishna's activities? What are they in the different incarnations? But as we go through, there is always the understanding that, within Hinduism, it's just Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh, that's it. But then when you ask, well, which Vishnu are you referring to, And is there a Mahavishnu? Is it Garbhodakasai Vishnu? Shirodakasai Vishnu? And then really that's when, our knowledge expands, when we actually study this part of the Bhagavatam. And then we realize that actually, Krishna is expanded into his plenary portions. In the spiritual world, he expands as well as Balaram, and then Sankarshan, and then Aniruddha, and then within the material world, then even Mahavishnu is amazing. So many universes coming out of the pores as Mahavishnu breathes. And that's when we understand the concept of time. It's all relative, Then we realize how, our time spent on this planet is so flicker of a second, in compared to the life of even life of Brahma, and even life of then Mahavishnu is. So there are so many different aspects that will become clear, but unless devotees ask questions and try to understand that, and then that pictorial form of Brahma sitting on the lotus stem, and the lotus flower, and then the stem, which actually includes all the planetary systems, and then Mahavishnu, and so sitting from the navel, the flower is grown. So all these different aspects, sometimes they become challenging to understand how that is all possible. But we forget that, Krishna has empowered Brahma, and Brahma had to meditate for thousands of years, to actually then first hear. And obviously, as we become clear later on, that the initial Bhagavatam, or the knowledge, was given to Brahma as a Chatur Sloki Bhagavatam. And then it's expanded. And then it's expanded even more and more. So it's important that the Bhagavatam gets commentary. And Prabhupada is expanding the most with his purports. So it's important that we study some of his purports as well. So thank you, Nabi. It's a quick overview. And I hope other devotees can comment or ask questions if they have any.
Yeah, absolutely. So are there any comments or questions from anybody?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
There's a question from Chitra.
Yes.
Why are the 3 Lila Avatars not mentioned in the Bhagavatam?
Oh, good question. Because these came, you remember that we were doing the Golok chart. Do you remember the Golok chart?
Yes,
where we had the Golok Vrindavan, and then we had Vaikuntha.
Yeah.
Now, in that Vaikuntha, it's actually 25 described incarnations. Actually, the number is unlimited. Even 25 is nothing compared to the number that there actually are. But in that Golok chart, there's 25 which were identified. And in Bhagavatam, 22 are identified. Why that there's a difference, not sure. Not too clear about why there's a difference. I did wonder that myself, but it's the Bhagavatam, the Golok chart has 25 basically. So we went with that because we were going through the Golok chart. But the Bhagavatam is the reference that really we would always stick by. But it doesn't matter too much whether it's 25 or 22, because actually the number is unlimited. Does that make sense?
Okay, Prabhu, yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chitra. Well done. And questions are important. Like you can see, the sages started immediately asking Sutta questions. Indulekha?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Very nice explanation and easy to understand. But again, as the Prabhuji just said, that the reading will help more.
Yes.
And also, the number 4 and number 5 questions, they are similar, except for one is a material aspect and one is a transcendental aspect of the Lord appearing. So number 4 and 5, they're pretty much similar questions. And yeah, I got quite a clear overview of everything. And thank you very much. Oh. And hopefully other participants will be able to ask more questions. And I'm getting the answers as well. Thank you.
And what I was going to ask you, is the format okay, Mataji? Do you think it's okay? Like
yes, it is okay, Prabhuji. It is correct, yes.
Okay.
Because you are giving, you're referencing from which verse we get which question, from which verse is the answer. That also will help. If anybody wants to go for this, they can easily find it. If they want to skip the reading, so they're going to go specifically to what you have. Yeah.
I think if even devotees read after the event, it's fine because before or after, it's okay. Nani Ben, is that you, Nani Ben?
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah,
great.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes, I don't understand the link between the I thought Srimad Bhagavatam was initially spoken by Vyasdev, written by Vyasdev.
Yes.
Then Sukdev Goswami and Sutta
Yes.
Goswami. I don't understand that aspect of.
Yeah, because we discussed that yesterday and the day before.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's easy to misunderstand. First reading was, if you like, between Vyasdev and Sukadev Goswami. Yeah.
Yes.
Because Vyasdev is the father and Sukadeva Goswami is the son. So
yes.
When Sukadeva Goswami came out of the womb, the narration was given by Vyasdev to Sukadeva Goswami. And then when Parikshit Maharaj was on the Ganga, 7 days to live, Sukadeva Goswami, at that time, he asked the question to the sages, what do I do now? What is the duty of somebody who's about to die? So at that time, Vyasdev was in the audience, as was his guru, Narad Muni. But then Sukadeva Goswami came and everybody stood up, and he was so effulgent that Parikshit Maharaj realized that he is the one that is going to be giving me the answers I want. So Sukadeva Goswami spoke the Bhagavatam. In that same arena was seated Sutta Goswami. And Sutta Goswami, later, after the Bhagavatam finished, he came to the sages in Naimisharanya. And the sages in Naimisharanya asked him some questions. So then Sutta Goswami started answering and actually spoke the whole Bhagavatam. In that arena was Vyasdev. And at that time, he wrote the Bhagavatam. So it's a little confusing. The original reciter, if you like, is Vyasdev, but he is writing it when Sukadev Goswami is speaking it.
Sutta.
So it's Sutta Goswami is speaking it to the sages in Naimisharanya.
So how many times has it been written?
Many times. Oh, written once.
Yeah.
Written once, spoken many, many times. In fact...
spoken many times, written.
Yeah.
And that written once was by Vyasdev
in Naimisharanya. In Naimisharanya. So maybe with Ganesh, might well be, may not be. But let me just see. Here, look. This is how many times... oh, yeah. It's been narrated many times. For example, there we go. The first one is what we're talking about. Sutta Goswami to Shonaka Rishi and the sages in Naimisharanya. And Shukadev Goswami spoke it to Parikshit Maharaj. Narad inspired Vyasadev. And at that time, Vyasadev, or later on Vyasadev spoke it to Sukha. Brahma spoke it to Narad. Vishnu spoke it to Brahma, and that was only 4 slokas. But then from that expanded the whole Bhagavatam. Lord Krishna spoke it to Brahma at the beginning of creation. Maitreya Muni spoke it to Vidur in the previous time. And Lord Krishna spoke it to Uddhav as well. So it's a few times it's been spoken, Bhagavatam.
Originally was spoken by Lord Vishnu. Okay.
Yeah, it's a few times. But this Bhagavatam, what we're going to read, is as good as all of these Bhagavatams, as spoken originally. So,
and Nabi, and because Bhagavatam is like the cream of all the Vedas, just like Vedas have existed all the time and they've been passed on to Brahma from the creation of the material universe. And don't forget, Brahma creates the universe how often?
Yeah, that's right.
And how many times the universe is so many kalpas, so many Kali yugs come and go and all that. We are just in a one day of Brahma. There's a cycle of all the 4 yugas. and then the night time of Brahma, and it's the concept is quite, some of the incidences in some Puranas have been explained. They were from previous kalpas and previous Kali Yugas, and so it's very inconceivable at times. But the Bhagavatam, as you say, is the cream of all the Vedas, and it's been spoken. But the initial Bhagavatam is like a Chatur Sloka, the 4 slokas, which will come later on in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which was spoken to Lord Brahma. And then Krishna instructs Lord Brahma to expand this. 4 slokas have been expanded. And the same 4 slokas cover what are the activities of the Supreme Lord and what is the nature of material nature, spiritual nature and everything. But it gets expanded, and even Vyasadeva had to even expand that a bit more for the people of Kali Yuga, so, and for the benefit of Maharaj Parikshit, Sukadeva Goswami speaks it. But Sukadeva Goswami has been speaking Srimad Bhagavatam, that is his duty, that is his main occupation in a way. So he spoke it so many times. It's just that Maharaj Parikshit was in that predicament. It was like a kind of a divine intervention by Krishna to like a wake-up call for Maharaj Parikshit. And then he gets cursed and he's given 7 days to live and all that, and then gives another reason for Srimad Bhagavatam to be recited in this format. And Sukadeva Goswami comes and recites it, and then Sutta Goswami, they're all present. Then obviously once Maharaj Parikshit leaves his body after 7 days, then there's time period of when Sutta Goswami Kali Yuga is going to be entering, so the sages in Naimisharanya performs a yagya for 1,000 years, and then they still want the answers to all these questions they have, for Kali Yuga and others. So Sutta Goswami has been selected to speak. I mean, there is that bit about his father, Romaharshan, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sutta Goswami is the son of Romaharshan. So, and then that was the incident with Balaram, with the straw and all that. So then Sutta Goswami has been asked to speak, and then so he speaks, gives the answers to all the questions then. And then within the Bhagavatam, we will realize that, then it's about, Sutta Goswami doesn't just gives his authoritative answer. He says, I heard this from my spiritual master. And then Sutta Goswami says, I heard it from Narad Muni. So there'll be a conversation of Brahma and Narad Muni, and then so it'll unfold as we go along, but it does get confusing at times.
That's right. And Sukadeva Goswami, Naniben, also heard it himself many times. He heard it actually originally from Lord Shiva. Some people say he's heard it from Radharani originally, but Lord Shiva. Then he heard it from Vyasadeva, his father. He also heard it from Agastya Rishi, and also from Narad Muni and Devala. So Sukadeva Goswami has heard it a few times. Bhagavatam is something that is eternally spoken, but the first person to actually write it down for our benefit was Vyasadeva.
What period are you talking about between the Vyasadeva and Sutta Goswami? At the same time?
Yeah, 5,000 years ago.
Yes, all this from Vyasadeva writing it down into Sutta Goswami speaking to the sages.
Yeah, 5,000 years ago.
About the same time is everything, around the same time.
Same time. But if you recall, when Krishna reveals himself to Lord Brahma, that's at the beginning of creation.
Yes.
Like 156 trillion years ago.
Yeah.
So Bhagavatam is as old as Lord Krishna, because Bhagavatam is non-different from Krishna. So Bhagavatam has been spoken over and over and over and over again. The Bhagavatam that we've got now written by Vyas there. It contains all of the teachings from Lord Krishna and Lord Brahma and Narad Muni. It's all inclusive.
Mhm.
That's why we are very fortunate. That's why there's one couple who read it 5 hours every single day. They've read for the last 50 years.
I don't know. Yeah, they're 84 years old, and
Oh
they must have read the Bhagavatam about 500 times, and they know the shloks, back to front. But they still read the Bhagavatam every day for 5 hours.
That's why there's so much nectar, and that's why we want to dive in.
There's another example of a Pujari in Radharaman temple who read the Bhagavatam to the deities. And then once he became old and he became blind, he couldn't read it. So the deities would read the Bhagavatam to the Pujari. Amazing.
Amazing, yes.
Now, Lalibin, I wanted to ask you about this format. I think
the format it's fine, but sometimes I have normal sight, but sometimes I have difficulty reading the small writings. That's my problem. I don't know.
Is it too small?
I at times feel too small. Yes. Sometimes I make an effort to read it. It's quite an effort. Yes.
Are you looking at a computer or?
No, my computer is gone. My computer, I need a new one. So it's on my mobile. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's fine. No, that's fine.
So can we get it on the computer? This WhatsApp?
Yes.
Yeah.
You can. You can download it on the computer. No, hang on. WhatsApp. Yes, you can.
Yeah,
WhatsApp,
you got WhatsApp.
You mean Zoom?
No.
No. About the
WhatsApp, the notes.
The notes. You
can. The notes, yeah.
You can download the WhatsApp app.
Yeah.
On the computer.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I've ordered a new computer, so then it will be a bit easier for me.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anything else, Again? Anything else from your side?
No.
Anybody else? Any questions? Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for hanging in there. It's the beginning, and I think it's a good beginning, and we will try to just carry on. And I hope everybody's get a chance to read. We'll try to do 3 chapters every day, if it's possible. And in that way, it should take about 100 seminars to deal with it. But this is actually something that Bhagavatam should become our life. Very regularly, we should be reading and relishing this nectar.
Yeah, because the Acharyas say that Bhagavatam actually is Krishna himself. And if you don't know the Bhagavatam, how are we ever going to know Krishna, even if he comes in front of us? So we
can you, Prabhuji, can you send me this history of Srimad Bhagavatam again, personally, yeah?
Yes, I will.
Okay, all right, okay. Hare Krishna, okay?
Thank you very much.
I leave now, okay. I will have to leave now, okay.
Yes,
okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time. Huh? Okay, if nobody else has got a question, we can.
Abhinandan Prabhu ki jai.